please visit ramadanfm.com.
Ramadan, 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 87.9 FM.
Ramadan Mubarak from Adam Accounting Services.
Ramadan Mubarak.
Need help with your accounts and tax work?
Contact us today on 01908 692 380 and see how we can help.
Adam Accounting Services, friendly local accountants. Call us today on 01908 692 380.
Assalamu alaikum, my dear sisters. Come and join me on Ramadan FM show, Me, My Lord, My Iman, every Wednesday at 2 o'clock. We will be going on a journey talking about developing a positive mindset and inner self-confidence, discussing can success only come from Allah? And we will look into how we can keep our connection with Allah despite the chaos of life. Me, My Lord, My Iman, every Wednesday at 2 o'clock. See you then, inshallah.
La ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah. 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 La ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah.
I believe that there is no God but Allah, and that Muhammad, peace be upon him, is his messenger.
See, we complain a lot about the type of leadership that we have, don't we? Leadership in our masajid, we say, oh, it's corrupt. Leadership in our countries, it's corrupt. Do you know why we have corrupt leadership? Because our leadership is a reflection of us. It's a reflection of what we are inside. If we want the leaders to be better, we have to become better. We have to become honest if we want our leaders to be honest, because they are a reflection of who we are inside. Changing ourselves. Inna Allah la yughayyiru ma biqawmin hatta yughayyiru ma bi anfusihim. Indeed, Allah does not change the condition of a people until they change what's inside themselves. If you want just leaders, be just in your own families. Be just in your organizations, at your schools, in your masajid. We can't even have a proper board in the masjid. And we're going to talk about justice at the state level. We have to start to change ourselves. Going back to that, the best of you are the best to their families.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Tax Update by Adam Accounting Services Limited. Apologies for the little technical difficulties we've had today. For those who are tuning in for the first time, a special welcome to all of you. My name is Salman Maqbool. I'm a chartered accountant, director of Adam Accounting Services Limited. My company, Alhamdulillah, has been around for more than 10 years, providing accounting and tax advice within Milton Keynes and surrounding areas. You can find us on www.adamaccountingservicesltd.com. First thing first, I wish all of you Ramadan Kareem and pray that Allah accepts all of your ibadah. Ameen. This is the final part of our two-part show. Here we'll be focusing on tax changes relating to individuals. This is continuing on from what I had started last year, following a request from one of the trustees. I would like to thank all of the trustees for this opportunity. Thank you. Given the nature of the subject, I'll be giving broad clarifications on what we discussed today. If there are specific matters you wish to discuss, you may reach me through my website on www.adamaccountingserviceslimited.com or call me on 01908 692 380. A quick recap for those who didn't attend the show last week. We discussed several items. I'm just going to give headlines on those items. We discussed grants that are available from the council to businesses with shops on high streets or pay council tax. We discussed holiday of payment from council tax for a few more months. Then there was the different types of financing schemes available to businesses, in particular the business interruption loan and the Kickstart scheme. Then we went on to discuss corporation tax rate, that it is expected to increase in 2 years from now. There was a reminder regarding reading Surah Vakia and calling Allah by some of His beautiful names, which may help one with their risk, such as Al-Razak, Al-Manan, Al-Ghani. We went on to discuss coronavirus job retention scheme, which has been extended now until September, but the amount payable by the government starts to reduce from July till end of the scheme, where the employers are expected to make a contribution of at least 10% in July and around 20% in August. Then we touched on the VAT. For those who applied for a VAT deferment on payment for VAT liability relating to the June quarter, the government announced that you could extend the payment time to much later in 2021, but you would have had to make an application at the beginning of April 2021. The last thing that we had mentioned, something new for us. There are 10 designated free port areas which provide a business opportunity. It's unfortunately Milton Keynes did not make the list this time, but who knows? That is the end of the headline regarding what we discussed last week. Now moving on to our main items for today. Okay. We'll start with discussing allowances. Now, these are tax reliefs available in different forms because there's more than one kind of tax. And if you earn at the allowance level, then there is no tax to pay. So first of all, there's a freeze on all allowances. In the past, we've generally seen that they have increased, but the government has decided to keep them same. So just a recap of the main ones that would affect most of the people who may be listening today. Personal allowance, which affects your salary, is to remain at £12,500. You would see personal allowance as prorated, about £1,000 worth of relief every month and set off against your gross income. Dividend tax allowance, this is for those who either operate a limited company or have dividend income. The £2,000 allowance that was set a few years ago is remaining the same. Capital gains tax allowance, which is £12,300. Above this amount of gain, you would be expected to pay tax at 10 to 20%. At least. Inheritance tax nil rate band remains at £325,000. But a little less known fact is that inheritance tax comes with other related allowances, such as allowances for children's marriages up to £5,000, and then there's an annual allowance of £3,000. All of these are to remain the same. But with all these allowances, it is important to remember they can change at the whim of the government. It is important to consider not only how things are now, but what they will be like in the near future. For example, with inheritance tax planning. A recent seminar that I had attended suggested that some of those smaller allowances that can add up to be quite significant the Office for Tax Simplification are thinking of removing them. So, if you have those spare cash and, you're thinking about using them, it's a good time to start using it because in the near future, it might be the case those allowances are not available. A side note for those in employment, you may find you will start paying Class 1 NIC at a base pay, which is lower than last year. This is from one of the government tweaks. So although they've left some of the allowances same, but in some cases, like Class 1 National Insurance contribution for this month's salary, for example, will start at a slightly lower pay than last year. Right. Point two, little controversial, already in place, the changes to off-payroll staff. So this is specifically to do with IR35. For those who are contracting, they may have already had discussions with their employers regarding their future relationship. A little background, the government had introduced a legislation a few years ago, which should have been implemented in full last year. But due to COVID, it was postponed to come in force from 1st April this year. This change was to make the private sector work in the same way that the public sector has been doing for some time now. Essentially, the government wanted to move the burden of any tax payable by a contractor, if assessed by HMRC and turns out to be an employee, to fall to the end user. The key points to discuss here are tax paid in employment versus limited company are more than in employment. It is important that status determination has been done to discuss how the engagement going forward should be treated. What we've seen recently is that many companies are being scared into determining employment without considering badges of trade. This is a technical term just to determine whether someone is actually offering a trade or they're working as an employee. So an example would be, for the classic builder. Is he on your payroll or is he just doing a one-off job? And the type of things that you would assess is, does he exclusively only work for you? Does he get a fixed pay each month? Is he allowed to bring someone else in if he's not able to come in? Things like that. We're also seeing, as the contracting market is made up of individuals who are all looking out for themselves, but they don't have a collective voice. And as a result, the changes that are being pushed onto them, they are not able to make a change. If you look, for example, in the public sector, when similar changes were being discussed a few years ago, although the government pushed the legislation through, but what we did see is a lot of doctors, technicians, and even in the education sector, universities and such, they were able to raise the basic pay that they were getting under the revised contract to take into account the tax loss that now they're suffering. But it's unlikely in the private sector this will succeed because there isn't a collective voice. An important point to remember is that that HMRC can open an inquiry window within 6 years of the taxes paid or tax due. So if there are any underpaid taxes, they can always open up an inquiry. What we do understand is if you change over in the current year, something to remember is that, how long have you been working for that particular company as a contractor? Because you might open up yourself to some risk regarding whether you would be considered as a contractor or not contractor. So I'm just going to rephrase that. Key thing to remember and what we are advising our client is that if you have worked as a contractor for an extensive period and are being told to change the arrangement without a status determination, to consider getting a new contract or look for a job elsewhere. Moving on, high income child benefit charge. Very important that couples do share their income information with their partners. I know this may sound funny, but the point, if you don't, and one partner is claiming and the other is earning above £50,000, which is the minimum threshold where the charge comes in, then the other partner may be hit with a tax that he or she is not expecting. Working from home allowance. As many of us have worked from home in the last tax year, remember HMRC had announced in 2020 that each person can claim £6 a week for this purpose. This support is for one tax year, for the tax year beginning 6th April 20 to 5th April 21, essentially covering the whole coronavirus episode. If you have not done so, then you should look to contact first your employer about this deduction, and then through tax return system, or contacting HMRC directly. It doesn't amount to much, but any help is always appreciated. Moving on to national living wage. From 1st April, the living wage has increased at all levels. So this month's pay for those on minimum wage, they should see the following rates applied. So I'm just going to go through the 5 categories. So for 23-year-olds plus, their wage would go up to £8.91 compared to £8.72 last year. For those 21 to 22, £8.36 compared to £8.20 last year. For 18 to 20-year-olds, £6.56 compared to £6.45. For those who are 16 to 17, £4.62 compared to £4.55. And lastly, the apprentice, who are now able to be paid £4.30 an hour compared to £4.15 last year. Self-employment support. For those who are self-employed, the Chancellor did announce to extend the grant scheme, which started around June last year. This is the 3rd version, and a reminder for those who don't know, the grant enables an individual to receive 80% of an average profit. In order to qualify for this last grant, you should have filed your 1920 return by beginning of March. If you were not able to file on time, you may still be able to claim by doing the necessary work and speaking with HMRC or speaking to an external advisor such as ourselves. This grant, like its cousin, the Coronavirus Job Retention Scheme, has helped many, and we should be grateful to have this level of support, especially when we compare it to many other countries where such schemes have not been in operation. Other points for self-employed to consider: the VAT point discussed last week for limited company equally applies to self-employed. What I mean here is the deferment of VAT bill for the quarter ending June. Self-employed people can do exactly the same thing as well. Moving on to universal tax credit, I just want to draw attention for those who have been out of work but did not receive support via the Coronavirus Job Retention Scheme or through the self-employed system, then they should have received some assistance via universal tax credit. Although the support provided through this is a lot less, it is better than nothing. If you're unsure if you would qualify, the easiest thing would be to speak to HMRC. Moving on to stamp duty land tax. So this primarily would be of concern to those who are looking to buy a new place. Interestingly, even amidst the pandemic, house prices have remained steady, and in some places they've even increased. You would think that the house prices should take a dip, but it hasn't. Perhaps one of the reasons, maybe the government had announced sometime last year stamp duty land tax holiday. So for those who don't know, a property up to £500,000 is exempt from stamp duty, and in the recent announcement, the government said this is extended until June. The rate then falls to £250,000 until September, and then from October, the old thresholds and rules apply. So if you were looking to buy, this would be a good time, as tax savings would be significant even on a modest house. Related point, renting. For the last 4 years, those who earned rental income would have seen a deduction in the amount of mortgage interest relief that they receive. In this tax year that's just finished, 2021, there's no relief at high rate, but you should know there will still be some help available at the basic rate. Side note, I'm not here discussing permissibility of mortgage, but I am only providing an insight for those who are renting. This rounds up the main tax matters that I did want to draw your attention to after reviewing the recent budget. A final point, we're looking to host a webinar on inheritance tax planning, an area often overlooked and not understood very well. If you would like to attend, please register your interest by emailing us on inquiry@adamaccountingserviceslimited.com. This concludes our show. Just a reminder, once more, as we part company, if there is anything which is not clear to you, then please get in touch via our website, www.adamaccountingserviceslimited.com, or call us on 01908 692 380. Thank you.
Al-Warith, meaning the one who will ever remain after the creation perishes. He is the one who will repossesses whatever he has granted them after their death. He is and has always been the owner of everything which he bequeaths to whomever he wills and gives to whomever he likes. It occurred 3 times in the Holy Quran, and the evidence is from Surah Al-Hijr, verse 23.